Hi, this is Wes Nichols. I'm a partner at March Capital in Santa Monica, talking to you from New York City today. I have both founder experience as well as investor experience. I'll talk more about my experiences from a founder standpoint today and things to be careful about and things to look out for and things I wish I learned along the way. A few points over my shoulder in my horrible writing. One is really, if you have a co-founder, understand what their intentions are and what their areas of interest are. There's a professor named Noah Wasserman from Harvard Business School who wrote a book called Founder's Dilemma. It's a great book worth reading. But he looked at 10,000 companies and found that they're essentially people on the spectrum of those who want to be rich or those who want to be king of their domain. And by being king, you give up less control, but you have more of a fiefdom. And by being rich, you give up more control and bring in investors. And there's a risk of bad things happening, but it also has a higher upside. Those companies that are focusing on the rich side of the equation tend to be much, much better culturally in terms of growing and scaling than those on the K side of things. I've had one example where I had partners I had a partner who was very much in one end of the spectrum versus where I was, and it showed in terms of the business outcome versus another company where we were perfectly aligned, and it was a 30x difference in terms of a business outcome. I think the other piece, number two, time is not your friend. Not only from a sales standpoint and from a hunt standpoint, but also from an investor standpoint in terms of closing deals. One example is we were in the process of closing a large round that dragged out over the summer in 2008, and the deal was set to close on the day Lehman Brothers went under in New York, and the beginning of the global financial crisis. That investor called us and said, "Deal's off. We can't do it. Our investors aren't going to allow this." And we were looking at about 3 months worth of runway. So we were, almost had a near death, did have a near death experience, almost had a death experience. And I think that's a continued example that once we lived through that, we realized that time is never our friend, to always be pushing and always trying to move things forward because the context changes so frequently. Particularly these days, we're seeing the context change as it relates to investments. The cost of capital is substantially different than it was even 2 years ago, and that changes the dynamics as well as the power relationships that we as founders used to have, and I think it's changed pretty dramatically. I think the third point, be paranoid, is something that you've probably heard a few times. It's something we lived and breathed. We kept very little information on our website about our companies. We kept low profile. We didn't share much because all we found was every time that happened, we saw competitors, particularly the incumbents, that were completely going to be disrupted by our technology. And most recent company Market Share is a great example of that. They were scared to death, and they were trying to emulate everything they could find out about our company and use those same words, even though they had no way had they built the technology or the capability to develop what we had developed. So we just said, let's keep a low profile and let's not, let ego get in the way of business and momentum. So I think looking at that from an employee standpoint, looking at understanding the employee relationship, they're not your family, they're not your best friends, they're coworkers, things like that. Understanding that and setting those dynamics is something I found to be very helpful. I think the other point, be ruthless, is kind of self-explanatory. If you think about the nature of entrepreneurship, it's a pretty crazy idea. I mean, here we are creating something that's, probably never been built before, that the people that you're trying to sell it to have never thought they needed it before because they've never seen it before, and they're sort of happy with their solution. And in many cases, they're scared of change. They're social and economic penalties for trying new things and experimenting. And so the incentives are, the odds are incredibly stacked against us because of all those incentives are completely misaligned between companies and entrepreneurs. So, but it takes a ruthlessness and a relentlessness to push through and make that happen. Find those diamonds in the rough of clients willing to stick their necks out and try something and get on board and be an evangelist for that. Protect your IP because there's a lot of Me Too companies out there that take advantage of that. And be ruthless about your staff. If the people that you have at the beginning of the company typically aren't the ones that are going to get you to the next level or the level above that. So understand that at times those people need to change, and including the founders sometimes. So that understanding that and being dispassionate about it, I think, is something that's I found to be very important. The last point is the blue ocean versus the red ocean strategy. Looking at how you go in and define the category that you're focused on, the business that you're trying to go after, and make sure it's not just a me too. Make sure that it's at least 10x better than what the incumbent solution is out there right now. Blue ocean relates to nice, unbloodied, clear sailing. Whereas red ocean is where it's all chummed up and sharks are after each other and it's super competitive and everyone's chasing after the same space, and it drives down margins. It creates a lot of problems. And a lot of companies, a lot of startups jump right into the red ocean as opposed to really thinking outside of that. One book in particular I really like, and it was my Bible during market share, was called Play Bigger. It's a group out of San Francisco of these go-to-market ninjas that were just incredibly helpful, helping define a new category and helping to think through how to become that category king in a newly defined category, as opposed to bobbing around in the red ocean. So those are a few things that I've learned. I've been learned the hard way on many of these things, and obviously seared into my soul. Happy to compare notes with anyone at any time. And you can reach me at wes@marchcp.com or on LinkedIn, of course.